Hi everyone, this is Julie Bruns. Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I want you to thrive and be happy, peaceful, and content, no matter where you are on your journey. This podcast shares stories that will show you how it can be done, no matter what your circumstances. You'll be inspired and come away with a new spark of an idea. Never forget, anything is possible. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. This helps others find our content and get happier sooner. To possibility and beyond. Hi everyone, welcome. My guest this week is Belinda Farrell, and Belinda and I were introduced by Jennifer Ellis. And Jennifer reached out to me, Belinda, and said she had heard about my podcast, and it's kind of fun because it's fun to be introduced that way, because typically I don't get a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, can so-and-so be on your podcast? Usually I find people organically, I get read about them or hear about them. And Jennifer reached out and said, like, it'd be fun to have you on. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So here we are chatting today. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I feel really honored to be here. Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you. So let's talk about you. So tell everyone what you do and how you figured out, we were chatting a little bit before the recording, so I don't know if that's part of your life's work that we just talked about, or if that was a hobby. So I want to hear about what you do now, how you discovered the work that you do that you love now, and like your journey there. Let's talk about that.
Wow, there's so many things. I'm a retired stunt car driver.
A retired stunt car driver?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know really what I wanted to do as I was growing up. I knew I wanted to entertain people. And I thought I was going to be on Broadway, and, your life takes different turns and pathways. And I got married. I worked for a senator in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And I was recruited by the CIA. That's who sent me to Washington in the first place. So I really didn't know what I was just kind of answering the call. You have to know that you have to answer a call. And if it feels right, you kind of go with it. You don't know where it's going to lead you, but you just have to take that step. And if you don't, you'd regret it. So that's what I did. Went to Washington, worked for a senator, got married, came back to Los Angeles, and then got a fifth year teaching credential so that I could teach. This was during the time of the Vietnam War. So my husband did not get the Berry plan. And so we went to Puerto Rico instead for 3 years, and I taught school there. And it was fine. It was, but that wasn't going to be my life's work. Came back. Eventually, I got divorced at 40. I have 2 wonderful children, but I started on a path of trying to find out who I was, and I was afraid of so many things, and I wanted to get rid of those fears. So I started walking on hot coals with Tony Robbins. I did that.
Oh my gosh.
Did that for 5 years. And if that doesn't eliminate fear, I don't know what does. And from there, I decided I wanted to drive a race car. And that's what walking on fire does to you. It says, geez, if I can walk on 2,000 degrees of hot coals, what else can I do that I'm not doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to drive a race car. So I found out where I could do that. And then my stunt driving career began because I had some talent, and they hired me to drive for Buick and Cadillac in New York. So it's been quite a journey trying to get rid of my fears. And I was afraid of water. All my life I was afraid of water. And I finally overcame that when I went to Hawaii to take an advanced hypnotherapy course. You're surrounded by water. You've got to deal with water because there you are. Mm-hmm. And so the dolphins started coming into my dreams and teaching me how to swim. And I would wake up in the morning and I'd want to go out and be with them, but I thought, I have to get through that water. Can't they come here? No. So eventually I got out into the ocean and met the dolphins, and it was just an amazing connection, something that I guess, dreamed of as an embryo or a child. when there was no fear in the world.
Yeah.
But those dolphins, they just teach you how to love unconditionally and how to get rid of every kind of fear there is. I started swimming with them and started taking people out to swim with them and called them in with the chance. We always had dolphins, and these are wild. You know, they come in on their agenda and they want to be with you. They love humans. So for 25 years, that's what I did
Wow. Where in Hawaii was that?
on the Big Island.
The Big Island. Oh my gosh, it's one of my husband's dreams to swim with the dolphins.
Oh,
He's never done it.
well, you must go to the Big Island. There's a place called Two Step,
Okay.
and it's a city of refuge. They're not there every day, but if you catch it and you're lucky enough to be there when they're in, it's just magical. You'll
Oh,
fall in
that's
love.
so awesome. So that was your life. So it's crazy. All the stuff you're telling me, I didn't know anything. It's just amazing. Like you could have named one of those things and that would have been a cool life, but you stunt car driver, worked for a senator, CIA, all of that. And then you go to Puerto Rico, become a teacher, but it's amazing. And then all of that. And then for 25 years, you swam with the dolphins and taught people how to swim with the dolphins. So was that your main work, or was that just like a side hobby?
That was the main work. I was doing ancient Hawaiian healing. And so I was finding out how the Hawaiians used to heal without any mental illness on the islands years ago. And so I started practicing this forgiveness process called Ho'oponopono, which means to make right inside yourself. Yes. And so I started feeling better and my fears started melting away. And so I wanted to just teach, people how to do that. And then my back collapsed with herniated discs. I had nerve damage. The doctors told me that I would never walk again if I didn't have surgery. And it was an incredible time because I couldn't work. I couldn't do any stunt driving. I was doing modeling at the time. I couldn't walk on the ramps because I couldn't stand up. And I had no more insurance. The insurance company dropped me because I couldn't work anymore. So I had to say to myself, okay, all this Hawaiian healing that I've been teaching myself for the last 3 years, I have to see if it really works. Yeah. It's like physician heal thyself. And so for a month I stayed in bed and I just concentrated on my back. I concentrated on what I had been saying to my back that would get it to collapse like that. And I realized that I had been talking to myself and saying that I couldn't stand up for myself, that I couldn't take care of myself, that I needed somebody else to take care of me, that I was not being supported. And of course, that goes to the spine because the spine is your support system. So then I had to change what I was saying. Tony teaches you, Tony Robbins, that you have transformational vocabulary. Whatever you're saying to yourself, if it's negative, then change it to something positive because your unconscious mind, which is running your body, is listening to everything you say. Yes. Listening. Yes. So then I started to say, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for regenerating. And that was the key word, regeneration. And it did just that. I healed within a few days of doing that. And it's in my book, Find Your Friggin' Joy. I had to
love that title.
Kind of get your attention, huh?
Yeah, I love it.
So things came up that were unresolved. You can't keep unresolved emotions locked up in your body. So as they came up, I would just get some closure and let them go. On page 109, I know there's one huge memory that came in when I was a fetus. And I didn't realize that my mother had taken me to 3 abortion clinics.
Oh my gosh.
And so there was an attempted abortion 3 different times. And the fetus feels that. So I think that from the get-go, when I came into this world, I was trying to prove that I was worthy enough to be loved. Because obviously I wasn't wanted when it first came in. So when I finally healed from that, and you heal the root cause of whatever it is ailing you,
Yeah.
your whole life changes. And my life changed. I stopped working so hard to get people to love me. I was fine exactly the way I was. You have to believe that at a deep unconscious level.
Yeah. Or just like you said, or it affects every part of your body, whether you're conscious of it or not. Is that what you write about in your book, Find Your Friggin' Joy, like your whole journey?
The whole journey, and also how you can heal yourself, how you can talk to yourself, how you can clear the pipeline that goes up to the higher self. You have a higher self,
Mm-hmm.
and the higher self listens to whatever the unconscious mind is saying. So when you clear all that garbage out of the unconscious, then you can really send your desires up the pipeline, and the higher self heals you
Yeah.
at the physical level.
I'm involved in this group called Year of Miracles. I don't know if you've heard of it, with Marcy Shimoff and Dr. Sue Morter. She's a chiropractor.
Sounds
Um,
wonderful.
it started at the beginning of January. Every month we have sessions, but they're teaching us all this Ho'oponopono
Oh, good.
practice and all of these other meditations, and the chakras and channel breathing and just all of the natural things that you can do to heal yourself, and in all different ways, mental and physical. It's fascinating how much is out there. That doesn't that you don't have to take drugs for, and that you can, how powerful you are,
You're
basically.
in charge.
Yes, you're in charge. You're the creator of everything that you have in your life, whether it's good or bad. But
Yeah.
it's a super positive group. It's all about, basically helping you figure out how to clear that stuff out and how to replace it with all the miracles and miraculous things you want to have in your life. And it's been a big eye opener. But I've learned so many practices, just so we're in halfway through it or whatever. But I've learned so much, and they just share all these just cool wisdom and energy practices and meditations that can help heal you. And it's phenomenal. I wish I would have learned this stuff 20 years ago.
Well, we all wish that. I wish I
Yes.
hadn't been so afraid of water so many years ago. I would have been with
Yeah.
the dolphins a lot earlier. But
Yeah.
it's fine when it's fine exactly the way it's happening.
Right.
It's evolving exactly that same way.
Yeah.
I cleared so much out of my body, and my back today is very strong. I have other challenges, but still, you're the one in charge. And as long as you go with the flow, that's the most important. I remember when I was just learning how to swim in Hawaii, and I went out a little bit too far, and I got caught in a current, and I was losing energy because I was just kind of swimming aimlessly.
Right.
And I remember saying, help, what, help, somebody help. And this huge giant turtle comes next to me, just huge, bigger than I was. And I started looking at him, and I could hear the voice saying, do what I do. And the turtle was just moving with the current and just kind of moving. It's
Relaxing, going with the flow.
relaxing, going with the flow. And that's what I did. I stopped struggling, and the turtle took me over to the rocks safely and put me on the rocks. He said,
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Did you write about this in your book?
oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cool story.
So I learned now that whenever you fight something, if it's not working, you're not going with the flow.
Right. Resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her turn.
So how did you, before you discovered that career and learned about, got over your fear of water and had all those years swimming with the dolphins, how did you, along the way, when you were a stunt driver and you were a teacher and you were moving, to Puerto Rico and working in all those really cool jobs, how along the way, how were you staying, before you knew some of this other stuff we're talking about, how did you stay happy and peaceful and content along the way? What did you do to grow?
I was modeling, so I was self-absorbed, satisfied. I had 2 children, taking care of them. And I've just always tried to keep a positive outlook. It really came to a head when I lost my son. That happened 2008. And I didn't realize that he was really hurting. He saw me heal my back. He had back problems, but he went the surgical route. His father is an orthopedic surgeon, so he was encouraging him to have surgery. And sometimes these surgeries on the back, they just don't work.
Mhm.
and he was in constant pain, and he had pins and, steel rods that were put in his back because he had hurt it when he was about 12 years old, and it was a ski accident. So just watching him suffer like that was just, it's hard for anybody to watch anybody suffer.
Mhm.
And eventually he took his life on painkillers. He couldn't stand being in the pain anymore. And that was the hardest thing I had ever had to go through. And even doing the Ho'oponopono, it can't get rid of your grief. You have to go through the grief like you would, a current riding on a boat on
Yeah.
an ocean wave. So I kind of still, that was about 12 years ago. I still feel it, but I know that he's in a better place now because he's not in that pain. I also lost all my money in a Ponzi scheme. So it hasn't been all.
Oh my gosh.
And that happened. I had to just start selling everything. My daughter took me in, and I took care of our little grandson. He was the one that kind of saved me because I had to be joyful for him because he's a
Right.
little baby and he was wanting to play every day.
Right.
So that's what we did. We played every day. And he's like 6'1" now. He's 15 and he's a lifeguard.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? That little baby.
I know, this little tiny thing is now this
Uh-huh.
giant. Anyway, it was just after that, I really wasn't in the mood to do much healing. And I had friends that took me to see a movie called The Living Matrix, which featured Dr. Eric Pearl and Bruce Lipton.
Mm.
They talked about reconnective healing, and I didn't know what that was, but they were healing people without touching them. And I thought, I've got to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And so I went and got training. I had a session done to me, and the girl didn't know anything about me. She didn't know anything about my son, nothing. And after the session, the grief was lifted and the joy came back to me. And it was like a miracle. I thought, what happened? But apparently something with my higher self came in and just wiped it away.
What was that healing called? What was that experience called?
Called reconnective healing.
Reconnective healing. I follow Bruce Lipton, and I've listened to some podcasts and read. I get his newsletter, and I've read a couple of his books. And I don't remember that reconnective healing. I don't remember that phrase.
Reconnective healing is with Dr. Eric Pearl.
Okay.
Dr. Eric Pearl.
Okay, that's cool.
That
Wow.
for 10 years, I had my own reconnection done. And after the reconnection was done, it was as though somebody whispered in my ear, you're going to write a book. And I never wanted to write a book before. I was always, I want to go out and play. I don't want to sit in front of a computer.
Right. You want to be in the water with the dolphins.
Well, not at that time, but I knew I didn't want to write a book. And then I had my reconnection done. And what that does, it accelerates you onto a higher soul path.
Okay.
And so I heard, you're going to write a book. And I went, okay.
Okay.
Okay. And sure enough, 3 years out came Find Your Friggin' Joy. And Jennifer Ellis's husband, Jim, he was my organizer. And he would organize my thoughts and he'd say, now explain this to me, because he was just a regular person. I couldn't do woo-woo stuff with him.
Right.
So I wanted to explain this book so that everybody could understand it, even at a third grade level.
Yes. I'm glad you did that, because I've been around this world for a long time. And so everything you're saying to me is music to my ears, and I get it all and I believe it all. But if you're trying to explain it to people that haven't been around, like my husband's one of them, he's a smart guy, but he's not in this world every day. Trying to explain this to people that haven't experienced it and aren't a part of it every day is tough. So I'm glad you took it down to that level, because if it's too woo-woo, people will be like, yeah, okay, that maybe it works for you. That's not going to work for me. And here's why. Instead of just listen. Exactly. Listen, I'm telling you, it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have puppets and I have, beautiful illustrations so that people can understand. They have to want to heal, though. They have to want to take an active role in their healing
Right.
because they have to feel that they're at cause for whatever happens to them.
Right.
If they're pointing the finger at somebody else and blaming somebody else, it's not going to work.
No.
This book is
It'll keep you stuck. You won't be able to heal. You'll just keep blaming it on that person. Then you just keep feeling more of it. Yeah.
so I
Oh,
explained.
good. I can't wait to read your book. It sounds so cool.
So that's what, but so after I had my reconnection done and I started doing this reconnective healing, I was healing more from the grief from my son. And it was just a whole new, brighter day. It's just amazing how that stuff works.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you came out of it and you're like enjoying your life, and that's good to
And
hear.
I just got married.
Wow.
I just got married 3 weeks ago.
That's right. That's right. So are you, that's awesome. Is it someone who you met in your life, like a regular person, or is it like someone you never would have met if you hadn't written your book
Well, I think it all has to do with synchronicity. I remember going into my garage and opening a box. I had gone to Bali in 2001 and I had brought back lots of artwork, and there was this beautiful 3-dimensional picture of Shakti and Shiva, and they were the ultimate love. And I thought, I can't put that up. I don't have that. And then all of a sudden I went to the garage and I opened this beautiful, beautiful sculpture. And I thought, I need to put this up now.
Yeah.
And I put this picture up, and 2 weeks later, I get a call from my best friend and her husband that they wanted to introduce this wonderful man to me. And they weren't really sure that we would get along because I don't do any drinking. He does a little bit of wine.
Yeah.
There were some issues.
Right.
And I said, but I want to play tennis. Is he a tennis player? That's what he was. So I said, that's what I care about. I just want to go play tennis. Wow. So we met for tennis. He brought me a box of chocolates, and that was 7 years ago.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so great that you, and the fact that you said tennis, like of all the random things that people could play every day or whatever, exercise people could do, that you said, I want to play tennis, and he just happens to be a tennis player. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I was 69 at the time. Now I'm 76 and he's going to be 80, but we still play singles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Play 2 or 3 times a week. Ping pong, pickleball. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, fun. We love ping pong, our family. We introduced it to our boys several years ago. We were on a vacation. There was a ping pong table by the pool, and I don't even know if our younger one definitely got into it. He played it the whole time we were there. And then he's like, no, it's just funny how people pick up things, it's like that we got him his own little racket, and he's like, everywhere we'd go, people are like, oh my gosh. I'm like, it's fun, the ping pong.
Oh, it's wonderful. So has he seen Forrest Gump yet?
Yes. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you've got to show him
Forrest Gump. I definitely have, but I don't think I've shown him Forrest Gump, so I should definitely get him to watch that this summer.
He was a champion ping pong player.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Meet the Chinese. He was playing with 2 paddles.
I forgot about that. I'm going to have to show him that. That's so fun. Okay, cool. Okay, so tell me about advice. So I'm sure you talk to a lot of younger people, or you meet a lot of younger people along the way. What do you say to them when they're trying to say, I'm trying to figure out something I can do where I love my job and I want to have a meaningful career? And what do you say to those people? Or what would you say if someone asked you?
Well, I took a lot of risks in my life. You've got to be willing to take a risk and to walk through the door, not close it on yourself and then say years later, gee, if I had only done that. I mean, what do you have to lose if you're young and you can make decisions? If you're going in the direction of what your talents are and what you love, you've got to love what you do. I don't care what it is. You've got to love what you do and not sell yourself short.
I love that. Someone else just telling me that, don't sell yourself short. I think they use that exact phrase.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. It's really like we were talking about earlier, you create everything you want. And if you're selling yourself short, you're assuming you can't get what you want. And you're saying, I'm not going to take that risk because what if I can't, or what if I don't, or whatever. But if you don't sell yourself short and you go for it and take the risk anyways, the likelihood of you getting it is so obviously a lot higher than if you don't go for it at all. But I just think people doubt themselves, right?
They're too afraid of their greatness.
Hmm.
They're just too afraid to walk into that cave because they can't see through the darkness. But at the other end, there's just this rainbow that's waiting for them. And it has to do with, I know it's a cliche. Remember Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he had to take that step and go across the mountain. And
yeah,
it really is true. If I hadn't listened to what I had said, well, I answered this call. Tony Robbins has this phrase. It says, if you can't, you must. And if you must, you will. So there's no can't.
If you must, and if you must, you will.
That's right. So I said to myself, gee, I really would like to drive a race car, but I can't do that. I can't even drive a stick shift, but I must. So I had to call and find out where I could get some training just to drive a race car. And that's what happened. And then I showed up. I was scared to death. I was the only girl with the Porsche racing team from Canada. And I said, I don't know a thing. So I'm just going to be a sponge here. And it turned out that I did have some talent. And at the end of the 4-day Grand Prix road racing course, I got hired from Buick and Cadillac to drive the cars in New York. And my stunt driving career started. I got a partner. We joined a team. We just started getting jobs. It was just wild.
It is wild. Do people that that you were friends with or your family, were they like, you're doing what? Like,
I know.
Were they wondering?
My best friend was supposed to come with me to the racetrack. And of course she backed out. And I could have backed out too, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. If she's not going, that's her tough luck. I've got to go. And that's true with all of your life. Don't go, don't go just because your friend is going. Go because you want to go.
Right.
Because it's calling you, because it's pulling at you.
Right.
That's your destiny.
I agree. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad you wrote a book, because if you hadn't, I would say at the end of this conversation, you should definitely write a book. So there's so much cool stuff you've done and been a part of and learned. So I'm so glad you wrote a book. I think not enough people do it, because there's so much wisdom and along your life, and sharing that wisdom and showing people what's possible, which is why I wrote my book. I don't know if you've seen this. I have it here under my microphone. It's called Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective. And that's why I wrote it. Same reason. There's too much to not talk about to share with people and say, like, it's possible. If you can dream it, you can be it. You have a dream for a reason. It's there because you're supposed to do something with it. All of those things that I don't think we're taught early enough in life. I think if you have really good parents and teachers around you, you're taught this at an early age. And I think that's not to say that if a parent doesn't tell a kid that, they're not a good parent. If people were more open to creating what you desire and knowing how powerful you were, everyone would know what's possible, and it wouldn't be just giving excuses and not doing things that you're really drawn to do. It would just be, you're just doing them, like you said, taking the risk and seeing what happens.
Well, I just know my mother was too afraid to even drive a car until she was in her 60s. Wow. And I was doing all this stunt driving and, receiving national, it was bizarre. And I was also doing commercials and acting and doing some modeling work, and it was crazy time. I mean, you're really self-sufficient when you're on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody, you can't answer to anybody but yourself.
Right.
But I loved helping people, and I still do that over the phone. I can take people through the Ho'oponopono process and help them to cut cords. And do you say I love you, I forgive you, thank you?
Yeah.
It's simple.
It is so simple.
But people just think that it has to be hard for it to work, but it's not true.
That's the thing. That's the good news. The good news is it's not hard. You just have to do it.
Right.
When we were being taught about that a couple of months ago, one of the examples they used was a pastor or some type of healer person was working at a prison, I want to say, and they were doing this practice, Ho'oponopono.
Dr. E. Hiliakalalen.
And he was doing it over their files. So just holding up their name in this file, but not even meeting them or even knowing them, and just saying this to them individually, and they were all receiving this healing that they didn't understand where, where it was coming from. Was right? Am I getting it right?
He's a good friend of mine. I've known him, and I think he's in retirement now, Dr. Len. And he practiced Ho'oponopono, and then he was assigned to this mental institution in Honolulu. Never saw one patient. He would just look at their file and then look inside himself and say, what is the part of me that is that person? And then proceeded to clean that part inside by saying the words, I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, thank you. And cleaning that part until it became neutral and that other person could feel the healing, and he was healed. They had to close down the hospital because everybody got healed except a couple who had to be transferred.
What's the doctor's name again?
Dr. E. Heliakala Len. Don't ask me to spell it.
Oh, all right, I'll just do the Lynn. I'll find it, but I'll put it in the notes.
Well, it's in the book. It's in a book called Zero Limits by Joe. I can't think of his last name. Joe.
Not Joe Dispenza, is it?
Not Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
Vitale.
I'll find it.
No, it's Joe Vitale.
Okay.
And he's just a businessman. He doesn't really believe in Huna, but he interviewed the nurses that had been at that hospital and verified the fact that, yes, that's what he did. And that's what we can do.
Right.
We think we're in trauma with people and we try to blame other people, but it's all about ourselves. We have to clean the part of us that is looking out and seeing that as a problem.
So true.
I have a CD called Chant and Forgiveness, and it's based on this Ho'oponopono, so people can put themselves through the process of forgiveness, and it's been out for about 25 years.
So that's a CD. Can they get that on a website, or where can they get that, Belinda?
It's on my website, the MP3 version and the CD version. Amazon carries Chant and Forgiveness also, just in the CD version, and I think TuneCore also carries it.
So how can people, so you said you can do this over the phone and teach this to people. How can they get a hold of you and work with you one-on-one and learn more about your book? And what's the website?
It's called Huna Healing, HUNA healing.com. And there it has my email address and my telephone number.
Okay. So cool. So I have one final question for you. You can answer one or the other. Is there anything you wish you learned earlier in your life or career, or what's the greatest gift you offer the world every day?
Oh my. I just love people. I want to hug them all. I'm so glad that the restrictions have been lifted. Like even for our wedding, we were able to take the masks off and hug one another. The CDC had lifted that ban. I mean, that's our natural inclination, is to want to love. So I think what I offer the world is a reminder to them that love is all around them, love is inside them. All they have to do is focus on something that brings love back into their life. Because whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to get. I wish I had been, well, you can't really say that. I wish I had been more adaptable to water when I was growing up. I avoided water like the plague. But I'm making up for it now.
Right, I would say so. And I love that. That's very inspirational as well, to say that you took a fear, you conquered it. Like Tony, says, if you can't, you must. And so you did it, and you didn't just do it and then say, okay, I did that, I'll check that off the list. You did it. And then you got all this joy and reward from doing it for the next 25 years. You were able to do all that with the dolphins because you conquered your fear.
That's right.
Yeah.
They are my teachers. They're like a higher self.
Wow.
And you got to get your husband to experience that.
Oh, for sure. We're going to do it. I know you mentioned Puerto Rico. We actually have some friends that moved to Puerto Rico a couple of years ago. So we were there last year, right before the pandemic, literally the last week of February, before all this happened with the pandemic. I'm so glad we went. But Puerto Rico also, I think, is just such a special place.
It is.
I don't know. I know you were probably there a long time ago, but we just loved it. The people are very special. And just that place, there's something about it. I can't put my finger on it.
No, you're right. And if you want to swim with whales, my best friend Celeste Eaton, it's called Celeste at celestialsonics.com. She takes people to Morena to swim with the humpback whales.
Wow.
And that is an amazing experience.
That sounds very intimidating. Like the dolphins seem more like, you said, like
They're
just,
fun.
yeah,
The whales are big,
right.
huge. I was swimming alongside and the eye is like this and it just scans you. So it just sees right into you.
Right.
We were in Tonga. That's the only place that in Morena where it's still legal to be close to them.
Okay.
But they're just gentle giants. They're amazing.
Wow. It's amazing. Oh, you're such an inspiration. I took copious notes while we were talking because I just can't wait to share what you've taught us in my blog and teach people more about some of the stuff you've been talking about and offer those resources, because what you're doing is inspirational. What you've done is inspirational, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and it's an honor to hear about your story, and I can't wait to read your book.
Oh, thank you. And I can't wait to read yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Deepak Chopra.
What's that?
You're the modern day Deepak Chopra.
Aw, thank you. It's been so lovely talking to you. And if you are ever, well, we'll have to connect, and maybe we can meet each other in Hawaii in a couple of years.
Wow, that's right. Okay, aloha.
Well, thank you, Belinda. Yes, aloha, and thank you. And I know everyone's going to get so much from this conversation, so I'm so happy to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you love this content, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you found us on. You can get all my social media links in the description below. Help us keep the momentum going so that every person can live their lives happily, doing work they love.